I thought arriving at the family hotel for the board meeting would be a simple task, another routine day in my life as the heiress of this empire. But fate had a cruel plan waiting for me. The elevator doors opened, and I walked toward the suite, clutching the room key. Something fell off, though I couldn't place it. I inserted the key, and the door clicked open. But as it swung inward, I froze. Li Wei, my husband, in bed, with my stepsister. Time stopped. I stared at them, speechless, my heart hammering like it would burst through my chest. My stepsister's eyes widened, but Li Wei didn't even flinch. He looked at me as if he had been expecting me all along. Tang Wei, he said, his voice smooth, calm, almost sinister. I can explain. Explain? My voice trembled, barely more than a whisper. Explain what? How you could betray me like this? With her? My stepsister tried to speak, but I cut her off. Don't. Just don't. I slammed the door behind me and ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just needed air, space, to escape the suffocating betrayal. My feet pounded against the marble floor, and before I knew it, I was on the rooftop garden. The night air hit me like a blade. I leaned against the railing, trying to breathe, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. And then I felt his presence. Li Wei appeared behind me, his hands reaching out. Tang Wei, wait. You don't understand. Don't touch me, I shouted, spinning around. I never want to see you again. His face twisted in anger, frustration, something I had never seen before. You'll regret this, he snapped. I already regret you, I hissed, and before I could react, he lunged, grabbing me by the arm. In the struggle, I lost my footing. My scream echoed into the night as I fell from the rooftop garden. The world exploded into water, a shocking, crushing impact that stole my breath, my vision, my memories. When I woke up, it wasn't as if life had paused, but something inside me had changed. I remembered the betrayal clearly. Every word, every glance, every laugh, but my heart, that foolish heart that once loved him, was gone. All that remained was the sharp, focused clarity of revenge. The first thing I remember was darkness. Cold water clinging to my skin, panic clawing at my chest. Then a pair of strong hands gripping me, dragging me from the pool, pulling me into warmth and safety. I blinked, coughing, gasping for air. And there he was, Sheng Long. His expression was calm, cold, and precise, like a predator assessing prey. But there was something in his eyes that told me I was not just another casualty in his world. You're awake, he said simply, as if stating a fact rather than acknowledging a life he had just saved. Who are you? I croaked, my throat raw. Sheng Long. I run the Long Hotel Group, he replied, his tone clipped, businesslike. And you're lucky I was passing by. I tried to focus on him, but the memories were a tangle, blurred flashes of betrayal, the fall, and a sudden emptiness where my love for Li Wei should have been. I realized, with a strange sense of clarity, that I could remember his betrayal in horrifying detail, but I had no recollection of the warmth I once felt for him. Li Wei, I stammered, my chest tightening. Sheng Long's sharp gaze softened, just slightly. I know. I've heard of your situation. But right now, your priority is survival. Survival. I repeated, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You just saved me. You don't even know me, and yet I don't do anything without reason, he said, eyes scanning the rooftop and the pool below. But let's be clear. I'm helping you. You fell. You survived. That's all that matters for now. I swallowed hard. Something about him unnerved me, but it wasn't fear. It was a strange pull, a tension I couldn't name. And beneath that cold exterior, I sensed something calculated but protective. He helped me into a medical room he had arranged, ensuring I was warm, dry, and medically checked. Throughout it all, he didn't ask about my personal feelings, my family, or even my betrayal. He focused on my recovery. You should rest, he said, pulling a blanket over me. Your body is weak, but your mind will need to be sharp. You'll need strength for what comes next. What comes next? I asked, my fingers gripping the blanket. Sheng Long leaned against the wall, his arms crossed, eyes never leaving mine. Life doesn't wait. You will need to reclaim your position, your power. And for that, you cannot let anyone, including Li Wei, catch you off guard. I felt a chill, not from fear, but from determination. Even with my fragmented memories, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wanted revenge. Li Wei had tried to destroy me. He had humiliated me. And he had underestimated me. You'll help me? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Sheng Long's lips curved in the faintest hint of a smile, almost imperceptible. I don't offer help lightly. But you're the only woman I've seen worth the effort. Let's start slow. First you recover. Then we plan your return. Even as my pulse slowed, even as I felt the warmth of his careful attention, a thought struck me. This man, this cold, calculating stranger, could become my greatest ally, or something more. And for the first time since the fall, I realized I didn't need to remember love for Li Wei. I needed clarity, cunning, and someone who could help me reclaim everything he had tried to steal. Sheng Long didn't speak again that night. But I felt it, an unspoken promise, a silent acknowledgement that my revenge, my recovery, and perhaps something unexpected, was just beginning. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the hotel's suite's massive windows. The room was immaculate, almost clinical in its perfection, but I didn't care. My focus was sharp. My body ached, but my mind was alive, burning with a singular purpose: reclaim what was mine. Sheng Long was already there, reviewing documents and hotel reports as if he had lived 1,000 lives in the boardroom. He glanced up at me, expression neutral. "You're awake," he said, without preamble. "I am," I replied, voice steady despite the lingering ache from my fall. "And I want to know what's next. How do I regain control of my family's business?" He raised an eyebrow, impressed. "First, you stabilize yourself. You can't fight in the boardroom if you're weak. Second, you reclaim your authority piece by piece. Your family needs to see that Tang Wei isn't just alive, she's untouchable." "Piece by piece," I echoed. "I want everything. I want him to realize he can never betray me again." Sheng Long gave a faint smile. "Ambition suits you, but caution is your weapon." Over the next few days, Sheng Long guided me through every facet of the hotel chain: finances, operations, and personnel. I had grown up in this empire, yes, but my focus had always been divided between personal life and business. Now, with clarity, every weakness, every decision, every overlooked opportunity became a tool for reclaiming power. "Look at these numbers," Sheng Long said one afternoon, pointing to a series of spreadsheets. "Li Wei manipulated this division, siphoning profits and weakening your position. You can turn it around with just 3 strategic moves." I leaned in, eyes narrowing, mind calculating. "Then we do it. Today." Sheng Long nodded. "And I'll be at your side." Quietly. But we moved decisively. One step at a time, Tang Wei. Even as we worked, I caught glimpses of his gaze, calculated, protective, and surprisingly attentive. He didn't push boundaries or offer empty comfort. He let me lead, but his presence reminded me that I wasn't alone. That night, I found myself alone in the office, reviewing board meeting notes and strategy proposals. Sheng Long appeared silently behind me. "You work too hard," he said softly. "Even someone like you needs rest." I didn't turn around immediately. "I can't rest. Not yet." Every second I delay, Li Wei and his allies tighten their grip. "I need to be ready." He leaned against the doorframe, eyes locking on mine. "And you will be. But don't forget, you're not doing this alone. I'm here. Every step, every challenge." I met his gaze, feeling a flicker of something I hadn't expected. Trust, yes, but also an unfamiliar warmth in my chest. I know, and I appreciate it." Sheng Long didn't smile widely. He never did, but there was a softness, almost imperceptible, in the corner of his mouth. "Good. Because the woman I respect the most is also the only one I would ever consider, standing beside me in every way. My pulse quickened, but I forced myself to focus. This wasn't the time for romance. It was time for strategy. Revenge and reclaiming power had to come first. Still, even as I plotted, planned, and strategized, I realized something. Sheng Long's presence wasn't just helpful, it was grounding. And as we moved forward, step by step, rebuilding my empire and dismantling Li Wei's manipulations, I felt a spark of something else growing between us, something that could not be ignored for long. For now, I had my focus. And my enemy would soon learn that Tang Wei was far stronger than he ever imagined. The boardroom felt colder than usual. The polished floors reflected my sharp heels, and the walls seemed to echo every whisper of past betrayals. Li Wei sat at the head of the table, smug, confident, convinced I was still the woman he had once controlled. I entered with Sheng Long by my side, both of us poised and deliberate. Every step was calculated, every glance intentional. He had trained me well in these past weeks, sharpening my instincts, my strategy, my authority. "Good morning, everyone," I said, voice steady, carrying a weight of command that drew immediate attention. The room fell silent. Even Li Wei blinked in surprise. Tang Wei," he said slowly, as if testing the reality. "You're back?" "Yes, I'm back," I replied, my eyes locking on his. "And I've noticed several irregularities in the accounts and operations while I was indisposed." Sheng Long stepped forward, his presence commanding yet silent support. "We've reviewed every transaction, every contract. Everything is being corrected. Li Wei's manipulations are being addressed immediately." Li Wei's jaw tightened. "You don't understand business like I do." I smiled, cold, sharp, deliberate. "Oh, I understand perfectly. That's why the board has approved all corrective actions under my supervision. And yes, they've been made aware of your recent conduct." Murmurs filled the room. Li Wei's stepsister, sitting nervously near him, avoided my gaze entirely. I felt satisfaction flare. They had underestimated me. They never expected me to rise so quickly. After the meeting, I walked alongside Sheng Long in the quiet hallway. "They're shaken," I murmured, almost to myself. "Li Wei, he thinks he can intimidate me, control me, but he's already lost." Sheng Long glanced at me, expression unreadable. "He underestimated you because he assumed fear and love would bind you. Now he sees neither. That's your greatest weapon." I paused, thinking of the fall, the pool, the searing clarity that came with it. "I remember everything," I said softly. "The betrayal, the lies. His betrayal, it's crystal clear. But strangely, my heart isn't tangled in it anymore. Only my resolve." He nodded approvingly. "Good. Never let sentiment cloud your judgment. That is how empires are taken and regained." Over the following days, I began reclaiming more of my authority. I scrutinized contracts, removed Li Wei's loyalists from critical positions, and reinstated my trusted executives. Each decision, each correction, made me stronger and more focused. One evening, Sheng Long and I reviewed a particularly complex contract scheme that Li Wei had orchestrated to siphon funds abroad. As we strategized, he leaned closer, almost casually. "Tang Wei," he said, his voice low, almost intimate. "Do you realize how impressive you are? After everything, you don't just survive, you dominate." I felt a flicker in my chest, but focused on the plan in front of me. Dominance isn't about admiration. It's about justice and ensuring he never dares cross me again. He smiled faintly, a rare softness in his eyes. Justice is always sweeter when paired with someone who knows how to reclaim what's theirs. And you were born for this. As I left that night, the city light stretching before me, I realized the truth of Sheng Long's presence. He wasn't just my ally. He was my anchor, my strategist, the one who could help me navigate both revenge and rebuilding. And deep inside, I knew something else, something dangerous, thrilling, and undeniable. I wanted him beside me, not just in strategy, but in every part of my life. Tomorrow, Li Wei would realize that the woman he betrayed wasn't broken, wasn't fearful, and wasn't powerless. Tang Wei was back, and stronger than ever. The day began like any other in the hotel empire, but for me, it was the first day of my revenge in motion. Every decision, every meeting, every glance was calculated to reclaim what Li Wei had tried to steal, and to remind him that I was no longer the woman he could control. Sheng Long accompanied me to the boardroom. I could feel his presence, calm, unwavering, protective, and it gave me courage I hadn't realized I needed. Today, we reveal the financial discrepancies. I told the executives, my voice firm. And we implement corrective measures immediately. Transparency and accountability are not optional in this company. Li Wei shifted uncomfortably in his chair, trying to maintain composure, but the board had eyes only for me. The stepsister he had used as an ally avoided my gaze entirely. I could see the panic flicker behind their carefully curated facades. Tang Wei, this is highly irregular, Li Wei protested, his voice sharp, trying to assert control. You can't just, can't I? I interrupted, stepping closer, letting my authority dominate the space. Everything I implement is within my rights as CEO. And everything I reveal today is your negligence, your manipulation, your betrayal, all documented and verified. Sheng Long handed me a tablet, displaying charts and evidence we had meticulously gathered. The board reviewed this last night. They're aligned with Tang Wei's strategy, he said, eyes never leaving Li Wei. Li Wei's expression darkened, a dangerous edge to his voice. You think you can undo everything I've built? You have no idea how deep I've planned this. I leaned forward, my voice icy. I know more than you realize. And for every scheme, every betrayal, I have a countermeasure ready. Your empire within my empire ends today. The room went silent. I felt a rush of satisfaction as murmurs of agreement swept across the board. Every executive's nod, every recorded acknowledgement, was a dagger aimed straight at Li Wei's arrogance. Later, Sheng Long and I went through the operations office, reviewing personnel changes, profit redirections, and contracts that had been compromised. He looked at me, his expression softening slightly, almost imperceptibly. You handle this with precision, he said quietly. And with patience. Revenge without strategy is just chaos. I looked at him, feeling a warmth I hadn't expected. I didn't realize how much I needed guidance and support. I admitted, my voice softer. You're stronger than you know, he said, leaning closer. But even the strongest need allies. And I'll be yours, Tang Wei. Every step of the way. My pulse quickened. There was no doubt. He had been by my side since the pool incident, and the more I relied on him, the more I realized how much I trusted him. Perhaps more than I should, but I didn't care. Not when Li Wei's betrayal had shown me exactly what true loyalty and respect meant. That night, as I sat in my office overlooking the city lights, Sheng Long brought me coffee, placing it carefully beside me. You've turned chaos into order today, he said. But don't forget, you're still vulnerable. Li Wei will push back. Hard. I sipped the coffee, savoring the warmth and focus it gave me. Let him try, I said softly. I've survived betrayal, a fall, and everything he thought would destroy me. He's underestimated me, and that was his greatest mistake. Sheng Long nodded, standing beside me. And the woman I respect most will rise even higher. Not for love, not for revenge, but for herself. And I'll be here, watching, protecting, standing beside you. I looked at him, feeling something unspoken pass between us, a bond forged in strategy, survival, and quiet admiration. This man, this cold, relentless force, had become my anchor. Tomorrow, Li Wei would realize that Tang Wei was no longer a pawn, she was a queen. And the game had only just begun. The next morning, I arrived at the hotel headquarters with purpose. Every step felt deliberate, every glance calculated. Li Wei had begun to notice the changes, the assertiveness, the authority, the unmistakable shift in control. He intercepted me in the hallway, a forced calm in his expression. Tang Wei, you're different, he said, voice low but edged with frustration. "You're planning something." I looked him directly in the eyes, voice firm and cold. "You're right, Li Wei. I'm reclaiming everything you tried to steal. And it's far past planning. I'm already in motion." His face tightened. "You can't, you won't. You underestimate me," I interrupted, stepping closer, letting my confidence fill the space. "You thought betrayal would destroy me. You thought fear would control me. You were wrong. Completely wrong." Li Wei's jaw clenched. "You've changed. This isn't the Tang Wei I knew." I smiled faintly, a sharp edge in the curve of my lips. "And thank God for that. Because the Tang Wei you knew, she trusted you. She loved you. She forgave. But she's gone. This woman? She's not forgiving, and she's not afraid." He glared, silent for a moment, then stormed away, muttering under his breath. I knew he was realizing, finally, that his arrogance and schemes would not protect him. Later that day, Sheng Long appeared by my side as we reviewed the latest financial audits and operational plans. "Li Wei is beginning to understand your power," he said quietly. "But that also means he will push back. He's desperate, cunning, dangerous." "I don't care," I said, feeling a rush of determination. "Let him try. I've survived a fall, betrayal, and near death. Nothing he does will stop me now." Sheng Long's gaze softened, just slightly. "And I'll be here to make sure it doesn't. Tang Wei, your strength, it's remarkable. I've always respected it. But I realize now it's not just respect. You're the only woman I've ever wanted to stand beside, in business, in life, in every way." My pulse quickened at his words. There was no grand gesture, no rush of passion, just truth, quiet, unwavering, impossible to ignore. I found myself leaning slightly toward him, my heart fluttering in ways I hadn't felt since before the betrayal. The days that followed were a blur of board meetings, strategic maneuvers, and careful observation. Li Wei began attempting subtle sabotage, misdirecting employees, manipulating contracts, whispering to the board. But every time, Sheng Long was there, guiding, advising, protecting. One evening, as we reviewed a particularly delicate negotiation, Sheng Long reached out to steady my hand. "Don't forget to breathe," he said softly. "You're doing everything perfectly, but even warriors need moments of rest." I looked at him, feeling something shift inside me. I don't know how I would manage without you. You've been here, through everything. You've never faltered." "And I never will," he replied. "I'm not just helping you reclaim your empire. I'm standing beside you. And no one, will undermine you while I'm here." His words ignited a warmth I hadn't expected, but I didn't pull away. For the first time, I realized that my revenge wasn't just about power. It was about reclaiming everything I had lost, including the chance to trust, to feel safe, and perhaps to love again. As I left the office that night, I glanced back at Sheng Long, standing silently, watching me. A thought struck me. Li Wei might have underestimated me, but he could never understand the force I had become with Sheng Long by my side. Tomorrow, the real battle would escalate, and this time, I wouldn't just survive. I would win. The day had finally arrived. After weeks of calculated moves, meticulous planning, and careful guidance from Sheng Long, I was ready to strike decisively. Li Wei had grown desperate, reckless even, and I intended to ensure that every one of his schemes would collapse around him. We entered the boardroom together, Sheng Long flanking me like a shadow, quiet, watchful, and unwavering. The executives murmured as we passed, sensing the shift in control. Li Wei sat at the head of the table, trying to hide his growing unease. "Tang Wei," he said, his voice low and tense. "This isn't your place anymore. You can't." "I think you overestimate your power, Li Wei," I interrupted, stepping forward. "Everything you thought you controlled has already been exposed. Contracts, finances, employee manipulations, every piece has been reviewed and corrected. Your games end today." Sheng Long produced a tablet, displaying evidence we had carefully compiled. Charts, emails, witness statements, all pointing directly to Li Wei's schemes, his betrayals, and his deliberate sabotage of my authority. Every damning detail was clear, undeniable, and public before the board. The room fell silent as I continued. And as CEO, I am implementing immediate corrective action. Every decision you made against the company, every attempt to manipulate its resources is null and void. You no longer hold influence here. Li Wei's face flushed with anger. You can't. You'll ruin everything. I built this empire. You built nothing, I said, voice sharp, cold. You poisoned it. You lied. You betrayed the people who trusted you. And me. You're finished. Sheng Long stepped closer, his presence reassuring. And for anyone attempting to undermine the company further, be advised, Tang Wei now holds full authority. And we are prepared for any resistance. The murmurs of approval from the board, the nods of executives who had once feared Li Wei, filled me with a sense of vindication I had never known. For years, I had been underestimated, manipulated, and nearly destroyed. But today, I was untouchable. After the meeting, Sheng Long and I retreated to my office. The tension finally gave way to something quieter, more intimate. He closed the door behind us, leaning against the desk, eyes fixed on me. You are incredible today, he said softly, a rare warmth in his voice. You didn't just reclaim power, you commanded it. I felt a flush rise to my cheeks. I couldn't have done it without you. You've guided me, protected me, believed in me when I was too broken to believe in myself. He stepped closer, and for the first time, I felt his presence not as a mentor or ally, but as someone who truly understood me. Tang Wei, there's something I've realized. I respect you, yes. But I don't just respect you. I care for you. More than I've ever cared for anyone. My heart skipped a beat. I wanted to respond, to reach for him, but I held back, savoring the weight of the moment, the danger, the intimacy. I think I've been waiting for someone like you, I admitted softly. He smiled faintly, but there was a fire in his eyes. Then let's not waste any more time. You've reclaimed your empire, Tang Wei. Now let's see what comes next. The weeks that followed were a delicate dance of strategy, trust, and growing affection. Every day, I watched Sheng Long in a new light, his calculated coldness hiding a deep care, his precision masking a tenderness reserved only for me. And I realized that my heart, once shattered by betrayal, was beginning to heal. Slowly, cautiously, it began to trust again. Li Wei, meanwhile, grew more desperate as his influence crumbled completely. Every attempt at sabotage was met with swift, decisive countermeasures. And with each victory, my resolve strengthened. Not just for revenge, but for the life I was reclaiming. That night, as Sheng Long and I overlooked the city lights from my office balcony, I finally allowed myself to speak what I had felt for weeks. Sheng Long, I think I trust you, I said softly. He turned to me, expression unreadable for a heartbeat, then broke into the faintest smile. And I will never give you a reason not to, Tang Wei. Not ever. For the first time since the betrayal, I felt a sense of safety, warmth, and something more, something I had thought lost forever. Tomorrow, we would continue to consolidate power, but tonight, I allowed myself to believe in something else. In him, in us, and in the life I was finally reclaiming. The day of reckoning had arrived. Li Wei's last attempts at sabotage had failed miserably, and every executive, every board member, had aligned with me. The power in my hands was undeniable now. The woman who had once fallen, who had been betrayed and nearly destroyed, had risen, stronger, sharper, unstoppable. Li Wei sat across from me in the final board meeting, his arrogance replaced by tension, his smugness now a mask of desperation. Tang Wei, this isn't over, he hissed. I leaned back, calm, my gaze unwavering. Oh, it's over, Li Wei. You underestimated me. You thought betrayal would control me, and now you see the cost of your arrogance. You're finished. Sheng Long stood beside me, silent but formidable, his presence a reminder that I was no longer alone. Every glance he gave me carried support, strength, and a quiet, unwavering admiration. I felt my pulse steady, my resolve solidify. The board confirmed the corrective measures we had implemented, the contracts restored, finances secured, and every one of Li Wei's manipulations publicly acknowledged. With a final nod from the chairperson, it was official. Li Wei had lost everything. He stood abruptly, rage flaring. This isn't fair. I built this empire. You can't just take it from me. You built nothing, I said, my voice sharp, controlled. Everything you did was to undermine, betray, and manipulate. And every single act is documented. Your power over me, over this company, is gone forever. He stared at me, a mix of disbelief and fury, and for the first time, I saw him truly powerless. That image, that victory, sent a deep satisfaction through me. After the boardroom emptied, Sheng Long and I stepped out onto the terrace. The city lights stretched endlessly before us, glittering like stars scattered across the skyline. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The betrayal, the fear, the anger, all replaced by a sense of liberation I had never imagined. You are magnificent today, Sheng Long said softly, his hand brushing mine. Not just in strategy, but in reclaiming yourself. Li Wei never stood a chance. I met his gaze, my chest warm, my heart stirring in ways I hadn't felt since before the betrayal. I couldn't have done it without you. You've been my anchor, my guide, my strength. He stepped closer, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of us. Tang Wei, I've always respected you, but I realize now it's more than that. I want to be with you, in every way, every day, forever. I felt a rush of emotion, a joy tempered by all I had endured. I trust you, Sheng Long, and I want that too. He smiled, a rare, soft expression that made my heart ache with longing. Then it settled. We moved forward together, Tang Wei, stronger, wiser, and unbreakable. In the weeks that followed, I fully reclaimed my position as CEO, restoring not only the company's power but my own. Li Wei's reputation crumbled entirely, every betrayal exposed, every alliance lost. And I found something even more valuable than revenge, a partnership with someone who respected, admired, and cherished me. Sheng Long and I began building our life together, slowly, deliberately, but with a depth of trust and affection that I had never experienced. For the first time in years, I felt safe, loved, and truly alive. As I stood on the balcony of my restored empire one evening, Sheng Long's hand in mine, I realized something profound. The woman who had fallen, who had been betrayed, who had nearly died, she was gone. In her place stood Tang Wei, strong, unyielding, and ready to embrace a future she had fought for. And for the first time, I didn't just survive. I thrived. I looked at Sheng Long, and he smiled, knowing everything without words. Together, we had turned betrayal into triumph, darkness into light, and vengeance into love. For Tang Wei, the past was behind her. The future, bright, bold, and full of love, was finally hers to claim.